High up, jumping off her chair, Shiro stretched her body with a smile. Seems like I don't get to rest just yet. Mrs. already sent scouts, so I might as well greet her now. Shiro grinned. Already. Nantion raised his eyebrow as Shiro nodded. Yup, Misu's one of the few good queens that I meet in the future. Plus, this time she seems even friendlier than before. If I had to describe it, last time our relationship was just that of a client and a weapons dealer. If I can get Misu on my side, that's another queen we don't have to kill. Her desire is to help people too, so I'm sure the talk will go fine. Shiro smiled. Should I come as well, or are you fine on your own? Nantion asked as Shiro thought about it for a moment. Yeah, you should come. I'm pretty sure that the talk will take more than just 10 minutes. Plus, it's not bad for you to come since you'll be talking to her a lot in the future. Shiro smiled as Nantion nodded. Then perhaps we should go with a different wheelchair. Don't we want a better impression? Nope, you're coming with me like this, princess, Nantion. Shiro grinned as she flickered behind his wheelchair and started to push him towards the portal that she had opened. Don't call me that. Nantion facepalmed as Shiro chuckled. Why not? Don't you feel warm inside having a prince like me escort you? I'll remember this. Nantion shook his head with a sigh. PFT. What are you going to do even if you do? Shiro replied with a smug grin. Staying silent. Nantion rested his head on his hand while his fingers covered his eyes. ####. Teleporting to the forests near the zone. Shiro could see that the construction was going smoothly and everyone was helping with the setup of the new base. Making sure that she wasn't detected by them, she walked towards where the scouts were spotted. If I remember, the skeletons should be just ahead, she thought to herself while walking through the forest. As she was walking through, she noticed a few unwelcome scouts and flexed her finger. Suddenly, thousands upon thousands of nanotech wires spread throughout the forest. Like a spider setting up its home, Shiro could now sense all the scouts within the perimeter. A few rats. Yup, I'll clean it up now though, Shiro replied. Raising her finger, she swiped down, seeing a few of the trees rustling and a few birds scatter away. Nantion understood that she had most likely killed all the ones that weren't invited. Right then, let's keep going. Shiro smiled, retracting the nanotech wires. ####. What? All the scouts are dead. A woman narrowed her eyes after hearing the report. Yes, Your Highness. Our connection was cut off the moment they entered the perimeter of the zone. There seemed to be a formation there that can kill all scouts in a second as long as they're within the perimeter. Her subordinate explained while making sure he didn't raise his head. If he did, he might get his eyes gouged out right now since he could practically feel her annoyance on his skin. Are you sure it's a formation? Hearing this, the man froze up for a moment. We believe it's AF-. You believe, or you know? Tell me. The woman narrowed her eyes before sighing. Forget it. I'll give you a second chance. She smiled, blinking his eyes in surprise. He didn't think Her Highness would actually let him off. But before he could say anything, his head snapped to the right as his eyes rolled back. Convulsing for a moment, he stood completely still. Horace, send him to get re-educated. Make sure he actually does a good job this time. The woman snapped her fingers as a black shadow whisked away the man in an instant. Injury. Send a few of our failed products to test out her defenses. Give me some details on her powers since this is a completely new crest, she ordered. Understood. Hearing the response, the woman nodded as she glanced towards the direction of Shiro's zone. The crest above her was that of the woman holding a sword and a scale. ####. Widening her eyes, Misu paused for a moment before chuckling. So in the end it was her. No wonder I never saw that crest before. Prepare yourself. Shiro's coming here in a second. She's already created a tether to me using my skeleton scouts. Misu smiled as a portal opened up in front of her. I believe this should be our first proper meeting. Shiro waved her hand with a smile. Misu was about to respond when she made eye contact with Nantion sitting on the wheelchair. Staying silent, Nantion slowly face-palmed and sighed. *puff. Releasing another spray of glitter using the chair, Shiro broke up the silence. No need to be too serious. Don't mind him. He's a little injured. Where do you want our talk? I can invite you to talk at the zone if you want. Shiro offered with a smile. Sure. Nodding her head, Misu was a little taken aback by Shiro's attitude. With the pressure she had felt from Shiro during the first event, she had expected the talk to be super serious. However, despite what had happened, the current situation is favorable for a talk. We've only just claimed the zone, so the office isn't as good as I hope it can be, but it'll do for now. Shiro smiled, opening another portal as she gestured for Misu to step through with her subordinate. Seeing the hesitation, Shiro understood and stepped in first, and they followed behind her. arriving in a room that seemed like it was situated at the top of the pseudo-world tree which appeared earlier today. Misa couldn't help but look around in surprise, since this was much better than what she had expected. When Shiro mentioned that the office wasn't as good as she had hoped, she expected just a room repurposed to be an office rather than this. "Take a seat. Do you want anything to drink?" Shiro asked with a smile as she gestured towards the table. "I'll be fine. I'm here to talk about a potential partnership," Misu said seriously as Shiro nodded her head. "I know about this. What kind of partnership are we talking about here?" "Something along the lines of me giving you weapons against the Lightning Queen." Shiro smiled as she brought out 2 cups of juice for herself and Nantion. "I suppose it's only natural that you'd assume so, since everyone knows about the battle between me and the Lightning Queen. However, that's not what I'm here for." Hearing this, Shiro paused, since this was a little different to what she had expected. "I see. What kind of partnership do you desire then?" "I want you to help me properly revive the citizens under my care. As you probably know, my powers govern the dead. Everyone that I revive is turned into undead constructs. However, that's only because this is the only option I had back then. Before I was a queen, I was a healer. There was a period of time where revival spells no longer worked. The revival spell that most healers know requires a few restrictions before use. They have to revive them before a certain amount of time has passed. They cannot revive them if they have an injured soul. There was a big war, and I accepted the power of necromancy to save people." Misu started to explain as Shiro listened silently. This was something she didn't know, since she didn't hear a word about this in the future. All she knew was that Misu pitted the casualties and tried her best to keep people happy while reuniting them with the ones that have passed. What she's telling now matched pretty well with the information she had. The only difference was that she now knew what Misu was before. Plus, there was another thing that concerned her. The fact that there was someone not in the future next to Misu. Since Misu had brought him here, it meant that she trusted him. Yet there was not even a single sign of a person like this in the future. "So after I saw the video of you reviving people, I realized something important. Your skills have the capability to heal parts of the soul as long as the core is still intact. My necromancy preserves what little of the soul is left and reanimates them. If I was to get your help, I can revive everyone in the city as proper living people again. I don't desire to win this new age bullshit *T that destroyed countless lives. I just want there to be fewer casualties ripping families apart. I don't know how I can prove my trustworthiness to you, but I'll do what you ask of me to the best of my capabilities." Shiro looked at Misu. Her eyes flickered for a moment as her lips curled into a small smile. "What a clear soul," Shiro muttered as the color of Misu's soul was pure white. "This is a woman that touched the power of death just so that those who died in accidents can be reunited with their family once more. There's a way for you to prove it. A contract." Hearing what Shiro had just suggested, Misu furrowed her brows. There seemed to be a stormy glare in her eyes as she frowned slightly. "A contract?" she asked with a cold voice. "You misunderstand me. Let me tell you about the details first." Shiro waved her hand with a smile. "Do you know about contracts between queens? One where it makes one give up their participation in the new age?" Shiro asked as Mrs. shook her head. "You see, there can only be one winner in the new age, right?" "Yes, the winner gets a special reward, but there hasn't been a winner in the past gardens, and the reset would always happen." Misu nodded her head. "Indeed. Now you see, this contract makes it possible where one queen gives up their participation for the current new age, forming an alliance with another queen. I want to offer you this contract so that we can form an alliance with one another. You still have the power of creating anchors as well as the abilities that come with your identity as a queen, but you'll just be helping me when the new age from now on. I won't force you to do anything you don't want to. All I require is for you to keep the people safe. Naturally, I'll treat you as my equal and help you should you need assistance." Shiro chuckled as Misu stayed silent. For her, this contract was almost too good. She didn't care about winning, so this drawback didn't faze her much. The main problem came from the fact that it seemed too good. She knew that Shiro was good since she helped all those people, but things were a bit too favorable for her. It seemed a bit suspicious now. "All I have to do is help you out?" "To what extent?" Misu asked. "Mostly join in on fights against other queens, helping me establish more territories and participate in events with me." Shiro smiled. "And in return, you will help me revive my citizens and treat me as an equal?" Misu clarified. "Yep, and if you're concerned, I can add a requirement for me within the contract. While it is active, I won't harm you or your interests on purpose. There's a small chance that an action of mine might create a butterfly effect, so just in case." Shiro smiled as Misu was taken aback. The fact that Shiro was willing to restrain herself with part of the contract as well was surprising for her. Why are you going so far for me? I know that I don't care about winning, but still. Misu asked curiously. You have one of the purest souls I've seen so far. That's more than enough reason for me to try my best to get you on my side. Plus, our interests align, so it's a win-win. Shiro admitted. Of course, another reason was that Misu survived for a long time in the future, and she was true to her desires of helping people even after several years of wars and battles against other queens. Thinking about it silently, Misu nodded her head. All right, I'll accept. She smiled as Shiro clapped her hands together. Perfect. Let's see. This isn't a normal contract since it's one that removes your chance of winning the new age this time. Shiro explained as she glanced at her system. Even though she said it removes her chance of winning, there was never a chance to begin with. Once she failed in her world, her chances were over. The only one that even had the possibility of winning right now was her, no one else. Entity, Shiro, is requesting the use of the Queen Alliance contract. Authority level check. Check succeeded. The information on the contract will now be granted. Seeing the short burst of notifications, Shiro closed her eyes as the information flowed into her mind. Ready? Shiro asked as Misu nodded her head. Standing up, she watched as Shiro clasped her hands together. Suddenly, a burst of divine energy radiated from her as Tier 7 magic circles started to appear around her body. Opening her hands, light converged together as a scroll started to form. Grabbing the top, she unfurled the scroll, and golden words started to appear on the surface. Recognizing it to be the details of the contract, Misu read it silently to make sure everything matches up. Once she had read through everything, Misu understood what she had to do to accept this contract. Even now, it was a little shocking that a contract like this was available since it has never appeared in the past. The previous New Ages have always been filled with bloodshed. Closing her eyes, a Tier 8 magic circle appeared on Misu's chest as chains entered her body. Slowly, they pulled out what seemed to be a tiny anchor of sorts. Presenting the miniature anchor to the scroll, Misu opened her eyes. I accept the conditions. I, the undead Queen Misu, give up my participation in the New Age in service of the nanotech demigoddess. The territories I hold will assist her in winning the New Age. Suddenly, a golden harness appeared around the anchor and latched on. Flinching for a moment, Misu watched as the anchor entered her body once more. Slowly, the magic circles started to fade away one by one. Perfect. I suppose it's only fair that I show you where the main city is. Shiro smiled as Misu nodded her head. MN, but aren't we in the middle of an event? It'll take a while to get to the city, no? Misu asked, but Shiro shook her head. Nope, I have teleportation. And even if I didn't, it's not that far anyways. Just a few hours away. Shiro shrugged as Misu furrowed her brows. Wait, your city is that close? But we didn't spot anything of the sort while scanning the perimeter of this country. Misu frowned. You'll see what I mean. Follow me. Shiro grinned. Waving her hand, a portal appeared in front of her. Stepping through with Nantion, she could see that Misu was following behind her. Teleporting everyone to the top of the tower, Shiro grinned. Welcome to the flying city of Asharia. Everything here is camouflaged from the outside world, so you can't see it at all. If you look behind us, you'll see Varish Lyre. Shiro laughed, staying silent. Misu looked down in surprise. Demons, spirits, humans, demi-humans. Everyone was here, and none of them are fighting one another. Even the demons that have had a long history of wars against humans are peaceful right now. In fact, some of them are even helping out in a few shops. Would it be okay if I look around? Misu asked as Shiro patted her shoulder. Yup, feel free to look around. I'll give you this tablet that will explain all the rules to this city along with a map to everything. Shiro smiled as she handed her a tablet similar to the one that Nantion owns. Just call me on this when you need me. I'll go prepare your lodging in case you want to stay here for the night, so feel free to look around while you do that. Nodding her head, Misu flickered away along with her subordinate as Shiro was now alone with Nantion. Well then, this has been quite successful, hasn't it? Shiro smiled. Indeed, with her help, things will get easier in the future. Nantion nodded. Yup, but I wonder who that guy was. Since she had him beside her, it means that she trusts him, especially since it's an important meeting like this. And yet, I never saw him once in the future. Shiro narrowed her eyes. ####. Landing on the ground, Mrs. started to walk the streets as curiosity burned in her heart. The technology, the atmosphere, everything seemed too good to be true. Looking at the children that ran around happily, While designating one of them to play the role of Shiro, Misu could tell that the citizens adore her. Looking around, she could see mana potions being sold. The ones that were displayed in the cases radiated so much mana that just a single smell felt like it rejuvenated her body. Seems like you're new here. After her recent appearance, more and more unfamiliar faces have appeared in this city. I suppose you also received the goddess help. The shopkeep smiled as Misu nodded. Somewhat. In that case, then take this as a greeting gift. It's a mana potion that will fully restore your mana no matter how much you have got. There's a limit on how much can be sold, but since I don't leave this city much, I have a few spares on me. He laughed as Misu accepted the potion. That's awfully kind of you, but why? We barely know each other. Misu asked. You see, everyone here has received the goddess help. She doesn't expect anything in return. If you want to live a life in this utopia without doing anything, you can. However, that's not us. The goddess is working hard for us. Everyone here is in debt to her. We all died at one point when the New Age happened, and she brought us back. So while she's out there fighting, our responsibilities lie in keeping the city happy. The man smiled as Misu glanced up at the tower. This is quite a pleasant city. While Misu was wandering around the city, Shiro started to prepare a room for her. While it was unlikely that she'll be staying the night, it wasn't bad to just have one just in case. However, as she was preparing the room, she received a notification. Administrator 4 requests a meeting. Raising an eyebrow, she was taken aback since the last time she saw him was when they were retrieving the garden shard. Plus, he was only able to contact her because she had a higher authority rank at that time. Right now, she was lower than him, so the restrictions reapplied themselves. Did something happen? Nantion asked as Shiro nodded her head. Yeah, seems like Administrator 4 wants a meeting. Shiro replied as Nantion blinked his eyes. A meeting? What for? Who knows? It might be about the reward the system still hasn't given me for achieving a Tier 8 spell. Shiro shrugged her shoulders. Teleporting the two of them back to her room, Shiro accepted the call. Seeing a screen appear in front of her, she was greeted by the sight of Administrator 4. Unlike before, he seemed smarter. His stubble was gone. He wore a proper suit rather than a blanket over his shoulders, and his hair was swept back. Projecting the screen so that Nantion could see as well, Shiro gave him a small wave. It's been a while since I last saw you. And aren't you dressed for the occasion? Shiro smiled as Administrator 4 grinned. That's true. I just had a meeting, you see. Can't be looking shabby when it's a meeting that includes all the other administrators. I'm guessing the meeting is about the reward I was supposed to get. Shiro asked as he nodded his head. Indeed, you have no idea how hard it is to pick a reward for you. First of all, you are the first person to ever cast a Tier 8 spell when you should be Tier 6. Even though your class is Tier 7, your level is Tier 6, and the fact that even with these limitations, you still created a time chamber. Very impressive. And when I say first person to ever cast a Tier 8 spell when you should be Tier 6, I have included all the other gardens that have failed. He clapped his hands as Shiro nodded his head. I see. In that case, then what reward did you lot decide on for me? Shiro asked. I'm getting to that. And since you're the first ever person to accomplish this, both the administrators and the system knew that the reward had to be good. But at the same time, you have already broken the balance as a Tier 7 being. Demigods shouldn't be appearing at this time, but not only have you become one, demigods and gods are moving because of you. The recent battle in the realm of gods only proves this. Gaia, Nyx, Tartarus, 3 primordial gods were injured quite heavily as the consequence. Unfortunately, since they were the ones to make the first move, the system had to act against them. He sighed as Shiro narrowed her eyes. Now, I know you're upset about this, so part of the reward for you this time is to help them recover. Gaia should be feeling much better, and if I'm familiar with how she acts around you, she should be contacting you soon. That's a relief. Since you mentioned that healing them was just a part of my reward, what's the rest? Shiro asked curiously since this was already a good reward. With how injured Gaia and the others were, she would have been happy with just this. The second part is the best part. You have no idea how hard I had to fight for a reward this good. You see, out of all the administrators, a lot of them didn't want to give you this, but since you have achieved something of this standard, the system eventually agreed since it was the only reward suitable for you without being too over the top. What do you mean by too over the top? I'm glad you asked. A reward that could be described as the purge feature. With this, you can purge anyone or a group of people who the system has linked itself to. Administrator 4 smiled darkly as Shiro widened her eyes. And yes, even gods. Ikari, Arya, Watchmen. The purge will allow you to erase all signs of their existence with a single trigger. Of course, this reward is reserved only for the master of the system, and those it chooses to bestow this to. So you probably won't ever see it happen. Administrator 4 shrugged. Then why tell me about it? Shiro rolled her eyes. Just mentioning it so that you know what's around. Should you ever get something where it allows you to choose anything you want, and I mean anything, you can probably choose this and get away with it. Regardless, let's go back to the main topic. The reward for you had to be something worth the accomplishment of a tier 8, while also not violating the threshold of power that this world can handle. Therefore, we have agreed to let you obtain something no others have. A second core divinity. Administrator 4 smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly, a golden orb appeared above his palm. You see, every god has a core divinity. It's their strongest power. However, there are times where they are known by more than one divinity. These are formerly known as support divinities, as they are ones that others can get. Most of the time, demigods ascend to obtain a support divinity as their core divinity, and a select few actually obtain the core divinity. For example, the core divinity of light is only reserved for the origin of light, while the divinity that Arya and Ikari have obtained is support versions of this. Your friend, Nantion, is also on the path to potentially obtaining a support version of the light divinity. He explained as Shiro furrowed her brows. Then is nanobots a support divinity? Shiro asked as Administrator 4 nodded his head. Yes, it is a support divinity, but it's rather strong. It's on the verge of becoming its own core divinity. That's why I vouched for not letting you upgrade your divinity, but rather obtain a second one. Helping you upgrade something that would probably happen later was a waste. But I thought I was the only one who had this divinity. What's the original version of this then? If my divinity was to evolve to a core divinity, would it be the same? Shiro asked as Administrator 4 thought about it for a moment before opening his mouth. You see, your nanobot divinity is a branch of two very powerful divinities. Administrator 4 smiled, and that is origin of creation and origin of destruction. Just as how your nanobots can create things, they can also completely destroy them. It is a branch of these two core principles when the world was created, and with chaos granting you her blessings, your divinity is now leaning towards the destruction side. Hearing this, Shiro couldn't help but stay silent as she thought back to her talk with Kuromi about how she might give becoming a goddess of creation a try. Now that she had found out nanobots was a branch of these two core divinities, the joke might become reality. When your divinity evolves into a core divinity, its power will be upgraded to a whole new level, since core divinities are in a whole new realm to support divinities. With this reward, you are now allowed 2 core divinities. Of course, what that core divinity is you don't know yet. When you ascend properly as a tier 8, it'll seek out something that can become a core, or you can hold on to it. It's up to you. But as it is not a physical reward, it'll bind itself to your soul for now. Just as he finished saying this, he waved his hand, and the golden orb disappeared before reappearing in front of Shiro. Sensing the mass of divine energy radiating from this orb, she hesitantly reached out and touched it with her finger. Suddenly, the orb shattered to countless motes of lights that were absorbed into her body. Now that you have gotten your reward, my time in this call is about to end. Before I go, I'll tell you about the final request that the system had granted me, or rather, you. What request is that? Shiro asked, since the 2 things she had received were already more than enough. The system is preserving Isilia's and Edvamar's soul. Neither of them have been destroyed or reincarnated. They're in a stasis right now. Administrator 4 smiled as he ended the call. ####. Are you sure you wanted to go that far? Another voice spoke up as Administrator 4 chuckled. Yes, I'm a fan after all, but to go that far for 2 souls is, if I didn't, they would have been wiped clean and reincarnated. Still, at least you're the one who has to do this, old friend. Administrator 4 chuckled as the other person sighed. King hate you. You won't remember anything about her, but I'll support Shiro in your place. You'll become the neutral party once more. I know. Administrator 4 smiled. Standing in a trance, Shiro didn't know how to respond. There's still a chance to get Isilia and Edvamar back. She thought to herself in disbelief as she couldn't help stumble back. Falling on the ground, Shiro sat for a moment to digest everything she had heard. Nantion, Shiro called out as she looked up at the ceiling. MN, Isilia and Edvamar can be saved, right? Shiro asked as Nantion nodded. Yes, there's a chance now. Hearing this, Shiro closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Biting her lip, Shiro suppressed the urge to cry as she stood up. let's rest soon. We got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. I want to take another zone and rack up some points. We got 7 days to sort through everything, and by the end, I want us to have as many zones as we can get. Even if we can't get more than half of them to secure a win, leave nothing for the others. Shiro spoke as there was now burning determination in her eyes. Seeing this, Nantion nodded his head. Emin, should I take a zone? It's not like I'll be wandering around much. He asked as Shiro nodded her head. We'll save you till last since I'll be joining in a few fights. I know that we don't want others to find out about my powers. However, with my strength, we'll be able to storm their zone easily. If they bring an army, I'll crush that army. Shiro grinned as she stretched her body. Before you sleep, you might want to deal with Misu first. Nantion chuckled as Shiro nodded her head. True, if I slept and she needed me, that would be quite awkward. I'll stay up for another hour or so. I'll be practicing some runes so that I can use them in combat. Shiro smiled as Nantion nodded. Pushing his wheelchair to the side, he picked up the tablet and started to browse the net while Shiro stood in the center of the room. Pushing out with her hands, golden runes flickered around her as she had another go at stopping time so that she could move around. Time passed as Nantion yawned slightly from the side. If you're tired, you can go to sleep early, you know? Shiro said as Nantion shook his head. It's fine. I'll sleep in a bit. Hearing this, Shiro nodded her head as she resumed her training. However, after 5 minutes, she received a call on her phone. Seems like Mrs. finished looking around. Shiro muttered. Pulling out her phone, she accepted the call. Did you enjoy looking around the city? Shiro asked with a smile. Yes, I did. This city is quite peaceful, isn't it? Yup. Thanks to everyone working hard in the city, the daily lives of people here are pretty good. Hopefully, this is the same for every city we establish. Right now, there are only 2 floating cities. I am thinking of converting more, but the power supply of the other cities might not be able to handle it. Shiro shrugged. Unfortunately, I don't think I can help much when it comes to matters like this. It's fine. You just need to activate an anchor on the city so that I can link it up to my anchor and form a core to power the city. But we can talk about this in more detail tomorrow. Will you be resting here, or will you be resting in your city? Shiro asked. I'll rest here if you don't mind. Sure. I've already prepared a room for you. I'll open a portal for you now, okay? Wait, WH-. Before Misu could finish what she was saying, Shiro had locked onto her position and opened a portal in front of her. Blinking her eyes in surprise, Misu was a little speechless at how easy it was for Shiro to just open a portal for someone. If she wanted to, she could probably open a portal beneath someone's feet and send them into a volcano. Not that it would work on someone that could fly, but the opportunities are there. Shrugging her shoulders, Mrs. stepped into the portal. Enjoy your rest. I'll call you tomorrow morning when we're going to be moving out to capture more zones. Ending the call, Shiro yawned. Finally, it's time to sleep. She sighed as they were staying up late because of Misu. Now that she's went to her room, they could finally sleep properly. ####. Standing in her room silently, Misu looked at the giant bed in the center and sighed. Your Highness, I'll sleep on the couch. Her subordinate coughed as he didn't dare share a bed with her. All right. Nodding her head, Misu waved her hand as a veil of shadows acted as a curtain around the bed. Laying down, she looked at the ceiling before glancing down at the tablet in her hand. The technology of this city was far ahead of anything she had seen so far. Even looking at the videos of society before the new age arrived, Misu could tell that what Shiro has is obviously abnormal. The defensive turrets, the military base where she watched the soldiers train with guns, and even the armor that they produced here was far better than what they could find in other cities. Plus, there was still a large part of this city that she hadn't explored, but she figured that she had probably seen most of the things here. I think it's the military base tomorrow, as well as helping her take a zone from what she's told me. I wonder how many tier SIXS they have. Missa thought to herself as she closed her eyes. ####. So, I would like to introduce you to the people here. This is my father, my sister, my cousin, my friend's adoptive parent, my students, and my contracted spirits. Shiro introduced as she started to name them one by one. Listening silently, Misu wanted to question why the hell does she have so many tier SIXS. Plus, from the aura that she could feel from all of the tier SIXS, they pose a massive danger to the queens if they're not careful. She's basically got a squad of queen slayers? I thought each tier 6 was supposed to be obtained through blood, sweat, and tears, and yet there were enough tier SIXS here to be split amongst 2 queens. Oh, and my contracted spirits are basically pseudo-demigods. There's one more, but she's the lifeline of the zone, so she won't be joining us here in the command center. Shiro explained as Misu nodded her head absent-mindedly. Anyways, come with me. I'll show you to our main attack force when it comes to taking zones, so you know what to expect. Shiro smiled as she created a portal. Stepping through with Misu and Nantion, Shiro teleported the three of them to the mech hangars. Seeing the sudden appearance of Shiro, Sheena and the other specialized pilots saluted. These are the specialized pilots, the best of the best that we have in our vanguard. Each of them can kill a tier 5 with ease, and Glenn here is the first to have killed 2 tier SIXS without anyone's help. Shiro praised as Glenn couldn't help but blush. Feeling the gazes of his fellow pilots on him, he couldn't help but feel proud. He killed 2 tier SIXS? Misu asked in disbelief as the teen wasn't even tier 5 yet. The fact that a tier 4 actually killed 2 tier SIXS seemed impossible. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for Her Highness's mech. Glenn spoke up as Misu raised an eyebrow. I believe a mech is those big robot things, right? Misu asked as Shiro nodded her head. Yup, come with me. I'll show you where they are. Gesturing for Misu to follow her, the three of them made their way further down before Shiro snapped her fingers. One by one, the cover hiding the mech started to shift as the machines of war revealed themselves. Glancing up at the mech and feeling its aura, Misu could somewhat understand how he was able to do it. Each mech felt like a peak tier 5 being, and killing a tier 6 would be possible if taken off guard. However, there lies the problem. It was practically impossible to be taken off guard by something this big, but since neither Shiro nor Glenn seemed like they were lying, Misu figured that there was probably more to it than meets the eye. You'll be able to see them in action later. For now, let's go to the command center and prepare our next attack. There are 2 queens that have stationed their capture zones near here, so I want to be taking one of them by tomorrow at the latest. If you show me their crests, I might be able to tell you about them. Misu spoke up as Shiro raised an eyebrow. Perfect. In that case, let's go to the command center so that everyone else can hear about this too. Waving her hand, a portal opened in front of her as the three of them left the area. Right then, the first one, the one with the sword and scale. I don't know her title since I haven't found out where her city is, but I do know a little bit about her powers. Misu said as she gestured to her subordinate. Bringing up a short video, Misu opened her mouth. From what we've gathered, her powers are to flip desires, intentions, and perhaps even attacks from what we've seen. Someone that wants to kill her will have their intentions flipped to the point that they would even lay their lives down for her safety. In all of the fights that we've seen her in, she had never attacked personally except for one instance. When she fought against the Beast Queen and her new pet, Misu narrowed her eyes. Waving her finger, the video shifted as Shiro could see a giant Hydra along with the Beast Queen fighting against a woman who wielded a great sword. She had short dark red hair and a pair of silver eyes. Each of the Hydra's attacks that landed on her would be dispersed with a single touch, but Shiro could tell that she was having some difficulty. Turning her body slightly, she sent out a single wave of sword energy that amplified the further it traveled. Separating one of the Hydra's heads, it regrew almost immediately. You might think that's a Hydra, but it's not. It merely shares a bloodline with the Hydra. If it was just a Hydra, it would have been killed long ago. It's actually a Leviathan evolved from a Hydra, a named monster that has the title of Leviathan of Storms. It hardly has any mana or magic attacks as most of his skills are innate. However, that's where the problem lies. When you are in his storms, your mana is what is used to fuel the storm. The Leviathan had 9 heads connected to a single torso. Midnight scales protected its body as it traveled from the head all the way down to its tails. Similar to a wyvern, his arms were connected to its wings, but additional fins could be seen on its back that looked like tiny wings. Hearing this, Shiro paused since this was bad news if this named Leviathan monster managed to trap her in the storm. A storm powered by 300+ trillion mana did not sound good at all. So as you can see, both sides are having trouble during this, and the Beast Queen is just watching by the side. While having intel on the Leviathan is good, we still don't know any of the personal skills that the Queen has. Unless we can force her to move, she'll be able to collect intel on everyone using her Leviathan. Misa cautioned as Shiro thought for a moment. I can deal with the Leviathan using some of the mechs. If my calculations are accurate, they should be able to hold them back for a bit. In terms of the Queen, I do know that she is able to summon beasts, but that's about it. Shiro replied as Misu nodded her head. Out of everyone here, aside from the Empresses, the Ice Queen and the Beast Queen, I think there aren't anyone that can contend against you properly. Wait, why is the Ice Queen involved? Shiro asked curiously. Because during one of the events, she has obtained something that was able to defeat 3 queens at once. While it was unable to eliminate them, she was able to push them back with ease. One of them is the Lightning Queen that I am currently against. I'll be honest, had it not been for the Ice Queen, I would have suffered quite a bit. That's good then. I've seen the Ice Queen before, and she was also the one who taught me about the anchors. I'm not sure if I will be able to form an alliance with her, but I can always give it a try. Unfortunately, she has quite a large ambition unlike me, so getting her on our side would be quite difficult. Mrs. shook her head. That's true. Shiro nodded her head. What about the queen with the sword through the eye? Do you know anything about her? There's not much known, unfortunately. Similar to you, she is a queen that has made her first appearance in this event. I think if we leave it for a few days, we might be able to get some intel on her from other fights. If not, we'll probably find out firsthand when we try to take her zone. Mrs. shrugged. Speaking of taking zones, we should be moving out soon. I want to make a dent in their fortress for now. Izul will be staying behind as protection, and I want everyone here except a select few to follow me. Shiro smiled as the door was suddenly opened. Oh, sorry, I overslept. Een grinned as her hair was a little messy. Addie was following behind her while sighing. Sorry, Mum. I tried to wake her up earlier, but she wouldn't wake up. When I tried to reach for her, she would only eat my hand. Addie sighed. Raising an eyebrow, Shiro glanced at Een. Cough, what? I got a little too excited and might have exhausted myself while using magic. Een scratched her head. Well, I'll forgive you this time. Misu, this is my gluttonous daughter and my son. My second daughter is with Izul right now since she's acting as her guard. Shiro introduced, as Misu looked at Shiro up and down. I didn't expect you to have children. Neither did I, to be honest. Een was the first one. She just hopped into my life and started to eat all my crap, starving me when I was feeding off mana stones. As for Lysandra and Addie, they were better since they didn't bring as much chaos as her. Shiro shrugged, pointing at Een. Humph. I brought chaos, but you enjoyed it, didn't you, Mom? Een chuckled, not replying to that. Regardless, Een, Addie, you two come with me. We'll be attacking the zone near us with Glenn and the others, and Misu would be watching. Everyone else can go to the zone and set up for now since that would be our base of operations in this event. Waving her hand, several portals appeared in the room as every stepped into the one that was created in front of them. Getting Een, Addie, and Nantion to follow her, Shiro created a portal in front of Misu as well. I've already sent out an assignment to the mech pilots. They'll be joining us shortly once they're prepared. Nodding her head, Misu stepped through the portal. Before we start, though, can I ask you a question? Misu asked as Shiro nodded. Sure, ask away. How do you know runes from my world? If my knowledge is accurate, it should be impossible since all dungeons related to my world have already vanished. Hearing this, Shiro shrugged her shoulders. I managed to get a few glimpses of these runes while experiencing a vision. While the rune language is completely different from the base, it's similar enough that I can reverse engineer it once I understood a few key characters. And I basically decoded a majority of the runes that your people used in your world. I would be happy if you helped me fill in the blanks, though. I'm quite a fan of the runes that your world uses since they have a great affinity to spells that have links to souls. Shiro asked as Misa thought about it for a moment before nodding her head. I can try to tell you as much as I know. Since I was a healer, there wasn't much of a need for me to learn these runes, so my knowledge is limited. The only reason I recognized them was because I used 1 or 2 of them in my spells. Misu explained. Shrugging her shoulders, Shiro kept walking. That's fine. If I find new runes, then great. If not, then that's also fine. What about you? Anything I can do for you in the meantime? Shiro asked as Mrs. shook her head. We can get to reviving my citizens after this event. How many points do you have right now? Misu asked as Shiro glanced at her system interface. Well, I got 20 for winning a skirmish that had 2-tier SIXS thanks to Glenn, 5 for capturing the zone, and we managed to get 3 points overnight. That puts us at 28 points. Larger zones have more points, so the best scenario would be that we're 6th place right now. Shiro muttered. That's a pretty accurate guess. Since you killed 2-tier SIXS, whoever they belong to would have a hard time in this event, since you can only capture zones with tier SIXS. Regardless, it isn't my problem right now. My main priority is to steal a zone by the end of the day. Shiro grinned as she narrowed her eyes at the crest in the distance. Teleporting everyone joining this expedition to the zone, Shiro glanced back and assigned most of the mechs to guard duty. With just Glenn and Maria following them in the mechs, Shiro instructed Een and Addie on what they should be doing. With Sheena staying behind to protect the zone, Maria was more confused than ever. When they were capturing the zone, she didn't do much except for covering Sheena's back when she was in danger. Pilot Maria, you seem like you have a few concerns regarding this setup, Shiro said as her hologram floated next to Maria and sat down on her shoulder. Oh no. I mean no, I don't, Your Highness. Maria corrected herself as Shiro chuckled. No need to be so tense around me. If there is something you're concerned about, then you can just tell me. No need to hide it. Shiro smiled. Well, I don't know why I've been chosen for this. Miss Sheena is better than me in every aspect, so I don't know why I'm being chosen for this operation. Wouldn't the success rate increase if she participates? Maria asked as Shiro nodded her head. That is true. However, you can also think of this as hiding our trump card while also nurturing a second trump card. Shiro smiled. Who? Glenn? Maria asked, but Shiro shook her head. Nope, you. She pointed at Maria, who blinked her eyes in surprise. But I'm just average. Yes, your gun control and mech control are average, but you still succeeded as a specialized pilot, no? Plus, your support skills are very handy. What I want to nurture is your talent with the throne world. After our little test where I forced everyone to open their throne worlds, aside from Sheena, you're the second closest to being able to activate a throne world properly. I want you to grasp that feeling in the following fights and activate your throne world properly. Once you do that, it'll become a good weapon for you. Shiro smiled as Maria stood in silence for a bit. Don't worry about it too much and take your time. It'll activate eventually. Plus, this is a good time for you to get some EXP since your level is lower than the others. Shiro patted her shoulder before disappearing. With the hologram returning to her stop, Maria thought to herself for a moment before glancing to her left. There was the panel that showed the Throne World module, and right now everything was working properly. I can activate a proper throne world like Miss Sheena, she muttered to herself as she clenched her hands. Wanting to live up to the expectations, she closed her eyes and tried to remember the sensation she had felt inside the training hall. ####. Did something happen? Misu asked as Shiro paused for a moment. Yeah, it's nothing big. Just one of the pilots following us needed a little encouragement. Shiro smiled. You mean the meek demon girl in the mech over there? Misu asked, gesturing to the mech. Yup, she has some talent with the throne world, but is having trouble manifesting that talent. Regardless, how do you want to do this? Do you want to just watch us capture the zone, or would you like to participate as well? It'll give you some idea on how I would instruct you during battle. I'll join in. Plus, if we can capture this zone quickly, they'll have a harder time figuring out our skills and abilities. Mrs. shrugged. Great. I'll let you take the vanguard then. I'll support you from behind while giving commands. Is there any weapon type that works especially well with you? Bows, swords, spears. Shiro asked curiously. What do you mean by that? What I mean is what type of weapon user do you work best with? As a mage, a front line is necessary unless you can defend yourself. You're a necromancer, so you have the front line somewhat sorted. Would you rather me go with a bow, a sword, 2 daggers, a spear, or a great sword? Shiro explained as she waved her hand around, creating the weapons with nanobots. A good one with me would be spearmen, I suppose. I can summon undead monsters to act as mounts for them. Misu replied as Shiro nodded her head. Okay, spear it is then. I haven't used the spear as much as I wanted, but I do enjoy this kind of weapon. It's perfect for targeting weak points too. Lots of reach. Shiro chuckled as Misu nodded her head. There were lots of weapons that were good at targeting the weak points, and it was true that spears were one of the better ones, though it lacked the maneuverability in close-range combat. It's hard to line up the spear properly when they're too close. Tracing her finger in the air in front of her, a pitch-black spear revealed itself. Twisting her grip slightly, blades erupted out from the shaft of the spear. Once impaled, all she needed to do was turn her wrist, and it'll be almost impossible to pull out without ripping out a large chunk of flesh. All right, is everyone ready? Shiro asked as she glanced past Misu to see 2 large mechs with Een and Addy sitting on the shoulders. Yup, I'm ready, Mom. I suppose I should stick to human form for this fight. Een called out as Shiro nodded her head. Yup, if you're in your phoenix form, you'll set fire to the forest, though there's still a chance right now. This is a good chance for you two to practice flame control. Yin's flame control is pretty decent, so you can learn from her, okay, Addy dear. Shiro replied with a smile as Addy nodded his head. I'll try, Mom. Good. What about you two? Glenn, Maria, are you two ready? Shiro asked as both pilots nodded their heads. Perfect. Want to give me a mount for the time being? I know I can fly, but I'm kind of curious about how it feels to use your summons as a mount. Shiro grinned as Misu nodded her head. She's a strange one. Misa couldn't help but think to herself as she summoned a skeletal wyvern mount for Shiro. One moment, She could be the Grim Reaper, the next leader. And now she was acting like an excited child who had just gotten a new toy. Seeing her eyes light up as she jumped on the wyvern's back and brandished her spear, Misa couldn't help but chuckle as she summoned a wyvern mount for herself. How's the flying speed of this thing? Shiro asked as Misa thought about it for a moment. It's not as fast as it was. You can definitely fly faster than it. Is that so? Let me smack on a few upgrades then. Shiro grinned. Pressing her palm on the shoulder bone of the wyvern, a nanotech saddle appeared as mechanical parts started to manifest themselves around the wyvern's body, covering the gaps on its body. The skeletal wyvern now looked like a mechanical dragon with boosters behind it and weapons mounted on the side. Blinking her eyes in confusion, Misa didn't know how to react. Even though she now knew Shiro's title was the nanotech demigoddess, she still had no idea what the hell nanobots were. But from what she's observed so far, they seemed like they could do anything Shiro asked them to. Want me to upgrade yours too? Shiro asked as Misa thought about it and nodded her head. I'll even give you a seatbelt. I'll get rid of it once you're used to it. Shiro snickered as Misu tilted her head in confusion. Why would I need it? Oh, trust me, you'll figure it out soon. Shiro grinned as Mrs. Mount was also upgraded. Once everyone was ready, Shiro nodded her head. All right, Maria, Glenn, activate your camouflages and follow us. Make sure to reduce the size slightly too. Shiro reminded as she patted the wyvern's back. Flapping the wings, the wyvern hovered in the air for a moment. Leaning forward, Shiro narrowed her eyes and grinned. Asterisk, boom. Activating the thrusters, Shiro disappeared into the distance as the mechs followed. Blinking her eyes in surprise, Missy looked down at the seat belt before glancing back at the thrusters that were powering up. So that's why, she muttered. Asterisk, boom. Holding up and trying not to get her dress shredded by the wind, Misu suppressed her screams while trying to force her body to lean forward. The hell? She shouted out in her mind as she hadn't traveled this fast before. Her flying speed was slower than their current speed, so she wasn't used to getting hit in the face by this much wind. Waving her finger, a barrier formed around her as she blocked the wind. Adjusting her position on the mount, she sighed in relief. A little boring, don't you think? The joy of riding something this fast is to enjoy the wind. Shiro's voice rang out as Misu rolled her eyes. However, looking forward and seeing Shiro doing flips and rolls with the wyvern, she decided to not question the strange girl's interests. Hovering in the air, Shiro narrowed her eyes at the city in the distance. Situated near a cliff was a single large castle that had been reinforced with several formations. Further down the path from the cliff was the city, but it seemed desolate. Each of the buildings looked as though they were about to crumble to dust from the previous battle. There were some still standing, but they didn't look like they had been in use. There's probably a good chance that there are hidden chambers beneath ground for them to work in. Either that or this entire place is a shamble, Shiro thought to herself before glancing back at Misu. What do you think we should do to take this zone? Shiro asked as she was curious to see what Misu would say. It depends on how you want to do it. I suppose since I'm your ally, I should work towards your goal. If you just want the zone, I think with your firepower you can probably just raise this place to the ground like how the other queen did. No, Misu suggested as she pointed at the almost destroyed buildings. That's true. I won't deny that I have the power to do that. Shiro nodded. However, with my understanding of you, you wouldn't want to do that. There are probably innocents working for the queen within the zone. Killing them would be a shame. No. Cough. Sorry to say, but I'm not that benevolent. Shiro coughed awkwardly as she didn't think Misu had that high of a view of her. Then how benevolent do you think you are? Not sure how to respond to that, but I work with a strict set of guidelines. To save a person, I must ensure that I can save those I care about first. If I have to compromise the safety of those that I care about, then I'm sorry. I'm going to be selfish. Of course, I will try everything first before choosing to sacrifice one. My second guideline is the purity of their soul. If they're good people, I will try to give them a second chance if I can. Even those with slightly shaded souls can be redeemed if given time. However, once the color is past a certain mark, I would not hesitate to let them reincarnate into their next life. If their soul is pure black, I will destroy them myself. Shiro explained as Mrs. smiled. I'd say that's quite benevolent. You see, the difference between you and other queens is that you're at least willing to give it everything you've got to help people. It doesn't matter if they're helpful or not. From what I know, you won't choose to sacrifice the city either. You'd choose to sacrifice a part of you, if that's enough. I've seen what you did during the first day. In the video, you put your body on the line to save as many as you can. You pushed yourself as far as you could. Other queens wouldn't even think of doing that if their health is at stake. To them, Everyone else would be nothing but EXP bags for her subordinates. Naturally, this isn't including everyone, but rather the majority. Mrs. shrugged. Anyways, let's set aside that talk for now. Since there's a chance that there are people that might need helping, why don't we go straight for the castle? Misu asked as Shiro nodded her head. Sure, I'll take the lead and break the formations. Patting the wyvern's back, Shiro dived down immediately as she narrowed her eyes at the castle. Since they were so high in the air, they were essentially a speeding comet towards the castle right now. Twirling the spear in her hand, she grinned and spotted the first formation. Hashtag. Asterisk yawn. Stop yawning. A guard clicked his tongue as the one who yawned apologized. Sorry. I couldn't catch much sleep last night. You know my living quarters is near that place. He sighed. I know, but you should get used to it now. I've been under her rule for a while now. After 2 months you'll get used to it. At the start, it's quite haunting to hear them get the reset, but it has become background noise now. Yeesh, that's a little cold-hearted. It's not. We're all trying to survive here. Do you want to look for a place to live outside of her rule, where the countless monsters are roaming? Plus, if any of the higher-ups heard you, you might get a reset too. The first guard warned. That's true. It would be hard for me if not for you. Say, what would you do if I got reset? What would I do? Well, I'll keep you company as usual. The guard shrugged. Man, if I was into men, my heart might have gotten touched then. URG, don't think about weird thin. Wait, what's that? The guard paused, seeing a black shadow in the sky. Narrowing his eyes, he realized that it was a wyvern as the protective formation around the castle activated. Attack. Warn everyone about an attack. He shouted out as all of the guards near them sprang into action. Activate the defenses. Another shouted, seeing the shadow get closer. However, most of them knew that it was too late. Mana swirled in the air towards the shadow as tens of tier 5 magic circles appeared around her. Asterisk, bang. Suddenly, air was blasted apart as a single spear was thrown. Passing through the first magic circle, the spear was split into 2. Passing through the second, it was split into 4, 8, 16, and so on. By the time it reached the formation, thousands of tiny spears were striking against the barrier. Take cover. Ducking down, all of them watched as lightning exploded from the spears, crackling against the barrier and shattering it to pieces. With the first layer gone, they glanced up and saw the wyvern open its mouth. Asterisk, boom. Releasing a barrage of fireballs along with gunfire from the mounted weapons, the wyvern circled the castle. Some of the guards that were quick to react mounted the anti-air weapons, while also notifying the higher-ups in the fortress. Hashtag. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro could see the final barrier holding strong. It was the barrier that the zone offered as protection, and piercing it would be an annoyance. Let me deal with that. My skill set is pretty much known to a majority of people, while yours is still a secret, Mrs. said as she flew past Shiro on her wyvern. Standing on its back, black shadows started to flood out from her body as she closed one of her eyes. Clasping her hands together, a green orb of light manifested as it started to pulse. Throwing it into the air, she slammed her hand down as a tier 6 magic circle appeared under the wyvern. A second tier 6 magic circle appeared above the castle barrier as a set of giant bone hands descended from the magic circle. Tier 6 ritual summoning. Activating one of her skills, Misu created 2 more tier 6 magic circles in front of her as she narrowed her eyes at the barrier. Without saying anything else, she swiped down with her hand. Asterisk, boom. Crack. Punching down, the skeletal hand cracked the barrier with ease as the hand itself shattered. However, that was intentional as each of the pieces transformed into skeletal reapers that shredded the barrier with ease. Their sides would drain the mana used to power the barrier and funnel it back to Misu. Her next attack would be empowered by all of the mana she siphoned from the barrier. Asterisk whistle. Not too bad, but you know, something like this should be a normal attack now that you're allied with me. If you can't achieve that, you'll be left in the dust. Shiro grinned as she raised her hand. While she didn't have a skill that could put people to sleep immediately, she had plenty of ways to knock them out so that they could mount an attack towards the heart of the zone. Suddenly, a magical formation created from tens of tiny tier 6 magic circles appeared in the sky. Feeling the mana gathering next to her, Misa couldn't help but widen her eyes. However, remembering what Shiro had done during the first event, she knew she had to step up her game. Her equal was someone that would completely eradicate an event ground and make it impossible for mana to gather there. If anyone higher than tier 4 was to enter that zone, their mana would be drained immediately and they would be rendered useless. Those that are weaker can be classed as lucky since they're spared due to how little mana they have. Snapping her fingers, Shiro isolated the sound so that only those in the castle could hear it. In a single moment, everyone beneath the peak stages of Tier 5 was knocked out in an instant as Shiro grinned. Let's go. We have a straight path to the center now. Watching Shiro dive towards the castle, Mrs. shook her head and glanced back at the two mechs and the siblings that had followed them. Are they even needed? I think this is a little overkill, she mused to herself while following behind Shiro. Bang. Landing in the courtyard of the castle, Shiro could see that most of the people here have been knocked out. Those that managed to keep standing had strenuous expressions as Shiro was also allowing her passive aura to radiate out. To them, she would look like the most fearsome thing in the world right now. Glancing down at her phone, she checked the time. All right, let's finish this in 8 minutes max. How come there's a time limit? Misu asked, curious. Nothing much, just that I want to sort through everything quickly. Shiro chuckled as she gestured towards Een and Addy, who were on top of the mechs. You two come down, Shiro called out as the two landed next to her. You called. Which one of you wants to be the lifeline of this place? Just note that you won't be able to leave the castle for 5 days if you decide to be the lifeline, Shiro asked as Een thought about it for a moment. I can be the lifeline. I don't really mind as long as Addy keeps me company. Een smiled. All right, since that's the case, then let's deal with the lifeline of this zone. There's an underground city of sorts beneath this place, but we can ignore that for now. Just focus on the main prize, and that is to kill the lifeline and take the zone. They're Tier 6 as well, but we have 3 Tier 6 on our side right now. So what you're saying is that we should just bombard them? Een asked as Shiro nodded her head. Yup, I'll sit back for this one since it would be boring if I just killed him in one go. Shiro grinned as Een nodded her head. After all, she knew Shiro's power quite well. That Tier 6 would most likely die from a slap if Shiro was serious. Maria, Glenn, there will be reinforcements arriving, so I'll be relying on you two to cover our backs. Knowing what their manpower here is like, I doubt there will be any Tier SIXS, but if there are, be careful. Glenn, I know you managed to kill 2, but remember, they are still Tier SIXS. Don't hesitate to call for my help if it gets out of hand, okay? Shiro smiled as the two nodded their heads. Follow me. Dashing forward, Shiro led everyone towards the castle as the guards that were still standing didn't dare to obstruct their way. Bang. Crashing open the castle gates, Shiro stomped down as a wave of mana pulsed out, scanning the entire place in a single moment. She locked onto the largest mana signal within the castle and smiled. I found the lifeline. He's currently relaxing in the private quarters. Put these one, and it should show you a path towards his location. Shiro smiled as she threw a pair of glasses to each of them. Putting on the glasses, they could see arrows highlighting the path. Before they could ask Shiro anything else, they saw that Misu was now alone and Shiro had disappeared. Does your mother do this often? Misu asked as she didn't even notice when Shiro had disappeared. Unfortunately, yes. She's kind of on her own tempo, and it's hard to match her at times. But don't worry about it. She's still around. Een smiled as she swiped her hand, opening a portal to the rift. She dragged all of them in while Maria and Glenn protected the entrance. Walking around in the rift, Misu was surprised that they could just access a dimension like this with a single wave of the hand. This was similar to a reflection of the real world only without anyone else in here. If they wanted to, they could just phase through the wall and travel through the floor. When did you get access to this place? Misu asked curiously. This? I had it when I was born. As for Mom, she managed to enter this place when she was just a Tier 2 since she had a connection with me. Een replied as Misu paused in surprise. Wait, she had this when she was just a Tier 2? Something like that. Een shrugged, blinking her eyes in surprise. Misu didn't know what to say since Tier 2 was when a person first gets their proper class. For Shiro to get this kind of ability almost immediately was crazy. However, thinking about this, she realized another problem. Wait, how did you get it when you were born then? She asked. You don't know just yet, do you? I'm a phoenix, and my element is shadow. This rift was a passive skill that I had, and since I had a contract with Mom, she got a part of my power. Deciding not to question how Shiro even managed to get a phoenix to be her companion when she was just a Tier 2, Misu realized that the path shown by the glasses stopped here. Welp, seems like we're directly above the lifeline now. Since he is a Tier 6, let's just kill him as quickly as we can. Mom wouldn't like it if we took too long. Addy, are you ready? Een asked as Addy nodded his head. Clenching his fist, a Tier 6 magic circle appeared on the back of his hand as his entire right arm lit up in flames. Seeing that the two of them were preparing their spells, Misu did the same. Green mist started to gather in her palms as she wanted to drag out the enemy's soul and attack it directly. When I say 1, we charge. 3, 2, 1. Opening a portal beneath them, they could see a man in a set of armor that covered him entirely from head to toe. He sat on a throne, and dark energy could be seen coming from his body. Looking up in surprise, his red eyes flickered as he wanted to raise his sword to block, but he was too late. Landing a punch against his head, a column of flames erupted as the surrounding castle walls started to melt. Beneath him, a Tier 5 magic circle activated as a phoenix head created from fire appeared and pierced his body before opening its beak. Pushi, ripping the body in two, flaming spears appeared and skewered each part to the floor. While this was happening, Misu lashed out with a green chain that struck against his chest. Tugging on the soul, she realized that part of it was already burning away thanks to Addie's flames. Why is this family so strong? She couldn't help but think to herself. Not only were their casting times ridiculously short, the power of the spells were top-notch as well. By the time she had cast one spell, Addie had already finished casting his first one and was casting the second one right now. Quickly taking a few steps back, she watched as the night was burnt to ash before she could even do anything. Glancing up towards the sky, through the hole that was created thanks to the column of fire that Addie had released, she could see the crest flicker and shift. Changing into a blank crest, they realized that the Tier 6 was dead. Wait, it was that easy? Ian couldn't help but mutter. I think our spells were empowered thanks to Mom. She gave us court titles, remember? Addie reminded as Ian paused. All right, we're being powered by Mom's INT score. Ian muttered. Looking at each other, they both offered a silent prayer to the knight that had just died to them. Seeing a crown float up above his corpse, Ian reached out and started to integrate herself as the lifeline. Well, that was certainly unexpected. Shiro appeared next to them as she had a complicated expression. Mom, do you think that we've just been unlucky and fought with the stronger queens? Since these Tier 6 are, well, weak. Even though I'm only in the mid-stages of Tier 5, I think I can deal with them easily. Ian scratched her cheek. Perhaps, but don't get complacent. Shiro flicked her head. If you think with that mindset, you'll be injured heavily the moment you fight against a strong Tier 6. If they can hide their aura like me and make you think they're weak, what happens then? Shiro asked as Ian stuck out her tongue. Cough, that's true. But I agree with you. This guy is seriously weak. I think I can kill someone like him with just a single shot from my hand cannon. I'm not even using a pistol too. Shiro furrowed her brows as she conjured up a hand cannon. Do you think our knowledge on their strengths are a bit skewed? Shiro asked as both Ian and Addie nodded their heads. Wait, who do you class as strong then? Misu asked as Shiro thought about it. Cyrodiil would match the word strong. I fought to a tie with her last time. Hearing this, Misu was silent. Cyrodiil was known as the monster within the queens, and yet Shiro fought to a tie? Wait, actually no, I think I can probably win. I was injured and used an avatar when I fought her. Shiro muttered. Mom, hearing Ian call out to her, Shiro stopped what she was doing and glanced over. Yes? What is it? Shiro asked curiously. I can't designate myself as the lifeline. Ian scratched her cheek as Shiro paused in confusion. Wait, that shouldn't be the case. Arana, you're not Tier 6 yet, are you? Shiro asked as she realized what had gone wrong. Since Ian was powerful enough to kill a Tier 6 with ease due to the bonuses that she had received, Shiro had classed her as a Tier 6 in her mind. This meant that there was no way for Ian to link herself as the lifeline since the rules state that she had to be Tier 6 in order to do so. Who would be good then? Shiro muttered. She didn't want Addie to be linked as the lifeline just yet since his strength as a pseudo-demigod would be very helpful if they get into a rough fight. One of the only reasons as to why she agreed to Azul being one was because she was a supportive fighter rather than offensive. Addie was pure offense, so having him around just in case a fight broke out was beneficial. Receiving a call from the command center, Shiro pulled out her phone and put it on loudspeaker. Sup, I almost missed this greeting of yours. But let's set that aside for now. I'll be honest. When we saw you designate Ian as the lifeline, we had thought that you had something up your sleeve since she was just Tier 5, but since that's not the case, why don't I become the new lifeline? Nimue asked as Shiro coughed. I marked her as Tier 6 in my mind since she has enough strength to kill one, okay? Shiro scratched her head with a small pout. But if you want to be the lifeline, then sure. We still need Addie around in case we fight with someone stronger. She nodded as she snapped her finger. Suddenly, a portal appeared in front of her as she could see Nimue on the other side. Well, that certainly saves me the journey. Nimue chuckled as she stepped through. Before I integrate myself, I want to give you something first. Closing her eyes, Nimue waved her finger as water gathered towards her palm. Conjuring a rose of sorts, she handed it to Shiro. A proposal? Shiro asked with a raised eyebrow. Not quite. Put it in your mana realm, and it'll let me do maintenance without actually being in there. The effects are limited, but it's better than nothing. Knowing you, you'll manage to F***CK things up, even though it's evolved. Nimue rolled her eyes. Cough. It's not like I want to harm myself now. I'm not a masochist after all, but you still do in the end. Nimue retorted as she suppressed the urge to smack Shiro on the head. Shaking her head, she walked over to Yin's place and started to integrate herself as the lifeline. While this was happening, Shiro started to revamp the place using her nanotech. All of the broken walls were now fixed, and she started to clear out the basements. Those with dark souls were killed, and those that had clearer souls were offered a second chance. Naturally, all of them had contracts with the queen, so Shiro started to break them one by one. It was a little annoying depending on the type of contract, but after breaking the first 5, the process became easier. With the help of runes as well as the fact that she could see their souls, it was an easy task to pinpoint the contract and break it without consequences. Naturally, when she did this, the one who set the contract would realize what had happened. By doing so, she was essentially giving the enemy queen a middle finger. Snickering at the thought of the enemy queen being confused as to why her contracts were being broken, Shiro teleported everyone to Asharia and had Samuel deal with them once more. Thinking about this, Shiro wondered if she should change Samuel's title from an elder in the Spirit Council to tour guide of Asharia. Nimue, Shiro called out. What do you think about me calling Samuel head of the welcoming committee? Or something similar, bouncer? Shiro asked as Nimue blinked her eyes before facepalming. Don't bully the old man now. I think letting him keep his title is good enough. Plus, maybe you can make a new job opening rather than leaving everything to old man Samuel. Nimue suggested as Shiro shrugged. I'm not really bullying him. The Spirit Council is around, but they don't do as much as they used to. I'm thinking of relocating their manpower by having the old man act as the welcoming committee, since I'll be recruiting more people. Shiro grinned as Nimue sighed. I can't even tell if you're being serious or not. PFT fine, I'm kidding. I won't get rid of the Spirit Council. They're looking after the section with the spirits after all. Shiro shrugged. However, before she could say anything else, she narrowed her eyes and turned towards the entrance. Seems like reinforcements have arrived much sooner than expected. Addie, come with me. I got homework for you. Shiro smiled as Addie nodded his head enthusiastically. Let's not overkill them too much so everyone else can just watch. But going by that logic, Maria, Glenn, and Ian would be enough. Getting 2 demigods is definitely overkill compared to what I just mentioned. Nimue reminded as both Shiro and Addie paused. Shiro could almost see Addie's invisible rabbit ears droop down in sadness. **T, that's adorable. But Nimue's right. Addie might be a little overkill. Shiro thought to herself as she contemplated on what to do. Well, just Addie while dash. He's still a pseudo-demigod. Nimue grinned as Addie couldn't help but pout slightly. Seeing his expression, Nimue coughed. **T, that's adorable. But he is a little overkill. In terms of EXP, it would be better if Maria, Glenn, and Ian killed them rather than Addie. But he's too cute. Cough, I'm only kidding. Addie should do it alone since having you follow him is definitely too much. Nimue coughed as Addie's expression instantly brightened up. I'll watch from the castle. Shiro patted Addie's head as she created a portal for him. Once Addie left, Shiro glanced over at Nimue. And you tried to deny him. Che. ####. Stepping through the portal, Atesh could see an army charging towards them from a distance. Narrowing his eyes, his lips curved into a smile. Glenn, Maria, you two might want to step back. While the mechs will be undamaged, I can't say the same if you're too close. Mom would be unhappy if I accidentally cooked you. Atesh warned with a soft smile as both Glenn and Maria took a few steps back and reinforced the defenses within the castle. Nodding his head in satisfaction, Atesh flew towards the army. Once he was away from the zone, he raised his hand into the air. Since this is the first task that Mom has given me, I need to do a good job. Atesh smiled as he glanced down at the approaching army. Seeing that most of them didn't notice him, he smiled and swiped his hand to the right. Boom. Suddenly, a giant wall of fire erupted out from the ground, blocking the army from approaching. The heat was contained as anything it didn't touch was spared. However, the trees that were caught in it were reduced to ash in a single moment. Seeing that the army had halted their movements, Atesh nodded his head in satisfaction. 1, 2. Just 2. I thought that a queen would have more tier sixs than this. Disappointing. Atesh muttered as he waved his hand. Burning all of the spells that were sent his way, he glanced down and narrowed his eyes. Addy darling, I've already put a protective cover on those that I don't mind saving. Feel free to go wild. Hearing Shiro's voice from the mic, Atesh nodded his head. Sorry, but it seems like the order has been given. Sorry to those that haven't been chosen today. Snapping his fingers, tens of tier 6 formations appeared in the air around him as the sky started to darken. Pushing the clouds aside, giant balls of fire descended to the earth as each one was bright like the sun. Asterisk, boom. Crashing into the army, the fire immediately turned those that weren't chosen into cinders. The attack was simple, overwhelming power in a single moment. Once the fire cleared up, all that was left were craters that had the surface charred black. Those that were chosen unshielded their faces in confusion as a golden barrier flickered around their body. Seeing that many others had survived, they looked up at Atesh. My name is Atesh, son of the goddess and aspect of fire. Congratulations, you have been chosen for a second chance at life. Atesh smiled as the flames disappeared with a single wave of his finger. Hearing what Atesh had just said, the survivors couldn't help but look at each other in confusion. Seeing some of their expressions, Addy could tell that some of them were quite unhappy with what had just happened while others were fearful of the consequences of rejecting the proposal. Landing in front of them, Atesh waved his hand as they all felt mana wrap around their bodies and gathered them in front of him. Seems like some of you are unhappy. We're not tyrants, so you can still choose whether or not you want this chance. Those that don't want this chance can leave, and I will promise I won't harm you. Atesh smiled as they cast gazes of doubt towards his direction. In this new age, it was hard to trust anything a person would say, so their belief right now was that the moment they turn around, Atesh would kill them all. Seeing that they're still doubting, Atesh shrugged his shoulders since it was up to them if they wanted to come. If they don't, then neither he nor anyone else would force them to come to Asharia. If you want this second chance, come to the castle. If not, then leave. Turning around, flames surrounded Atesh's body as he disappeared from the area. Looking at one another, a few of the survivors looked at the castle and started to walk towards it. However, the moment they started walking, one of the survivors drew their blade and aimed it at their backs. Take another step and I'll end you. Did you forget the service our queen has done for us? We were chosen by her. The benefits, the protections, you dare throw it all away right now. He warned as his mana flared around him. Monty, open your eyes. Our queen clearly doesn't care about us as people. She just wants results. If you don't bring her results, how many times do you think you would have been reset by now? One of the survivors asked as the one called Monty gritted his teeth. But she still saved you. He held back. She saved us, but she also enslaved us. She might have been a savior for you, but for the rest of us, each day is filled with the fear of being reset. All of our connections, emotions gone with a single flick. You don't know how scary it is to go through it, since you never experienced what it was like. What do you do when your wife forgets who you are? What do you do when you realized you had a family before, but you cannot recall their names or faces? I had a son, Monty. A son. But now I don't even remember anything about him. All I know is that I had a son, and that was because of a single entry on my record. One of the survivors gritted his teeth and dashed up to Monty, lifting him up by his collar, the man pulling his head back and headbutt Monty. Open your eyes, goddammit. This world has gone to sh*t. What's the point of surviving if everything precious to me is wiped from my memory? I had lost my goal for God knows how many times. I'd rather force my way out than stay in that city for another week. Had it not been for the contract that we were forced to sign when we arrived, do you think any of us will still be around? Spitting out some blood, Monty grabbed the man by the head and reversed their positions. Slamming him against the ground, Monty regulated his breath. What if the new queen is worse? What if you don't even get a chance to die if you wanted to? If you lost a goal, then find a new one. Why are you so attached to the past anyways? Everything we knew of the world has changed. So what if she resets my memories of the past? I'd rather look forward anyways. Monty glared as he stood up. I dare you guys to find the new queen, he warned as his mana flared. Monty, a voice called out as he turned around. Asterisk bang. Receiving a punch across the face, he stumbled back as blood started to drip from his nose. Narrowing his eyes, he could see Farron extinguishing his cigarette. He was a tall man with short brown hair. A blade scar could be seen from his jaw down to his collarbone. Shut the *CK up, man. You have chosen to stay with her while most of us don't want to. If you force us like this, we'll fight you too. You made your choice, and we've made ours. Furrowing his brows, Monty clicked his tongue. Fine. He knew that Farron could fight him to a standstill, but if he included everyone else here, he would definitely be defeated. Retracting his aura as well as weapons, he watched as Farron led most of the people towards the castle. Those that stayed behind and looked towards Monty. Let's go back for now. We'll need to report that we were stopped by another tier 6. You guys shouldn't say anything. I'll take the blame for this one. Monty sighed as he walked away. #####. Arriving at the castle, Farron could see 2 giant mechs guarding the gates while Atesh was waiting for them with a small smile. Welp, seems like this is less than what I expected, but no matter. Atesh smiled. If you don't mind me asking, are there any contracts that we need to sign? Farron asked as Atesh shook his head. Nope, you just need to follow the rules properly. If not, you'll be punished accordingly. You don't need to do anything else. Atesh shrugged as some of the survivors started to murmur. Are you sure? This sounds too good to be true. Farron narrowed his eyes. That is indeed the truth. If you want, we can send you to the city now so that you can see what it's like personally. If you still don't enjoy it, we can send you to any spot you want and won't interfere with you. Atesh smiled as Farron frowned slightly. It was too good to be true. There were no free meals in the world after all. Taking a deep breath, he decided to risk it. Can I talk to your queen? He asked as Atesh paused for a moment. You want to talk with my mother? Atesh asked. Yes. It's fine, Addie. They have their concerns, so it's understandable. Shiro called out with a smile. Hearing Shiro's voice, Atesh glanced back and nodded his head. Stepping aside, they could see a white-haired woman stepping out of the castle. Seeing her, some of them immediately recognized who she was since they haven't got a reset yet. However, they didn't want to say anything just yet since they might be wrong. What is it that you wish to talk to me about? Shiro asked with a small smile. Why are you doing this? Providing free space like this isn't beneficial to you at all. So why do so much for people like us? Farron asked. I'll tell the truth. All of you have clear enough souls that allow me to determine that you can be good. Those with darker souls are eliminated since there is still a limit to my mercy. I don't require anything from you since just living in the city will help me with my power. The anchor empowers the queen. I suppose you can say that I shouldn't filter life through a yes or no method like this, but this is the new age. Even if I can monitor everything that happens, I'm not risking the lives of those that are following me or my trust ones with hidden variables of darker souls. Shiro narrowed her eyes. Hearing this, Farron nodded his head. Since if she was really giving away free meals, she would have allowed everyone to live except for the tier SIXS that were there to attack the castle. Is it true that you'll give us a choice, though? Of course. If you are unhappy with what you see, you are free to leave. You have my promise on that. Shiro nodded with a smile. I can't speak for everyone, but personally, I want to see the city for myself. Farron said as the survivors started to agree. Nodding her head, Shiro snapped her finger and opened a portal. There will be someone to guide you around the city. If you want to leave, contact me through him, and I'll teleport you to somewhere that you want to go. One by one, they made their way through the portal. Once the last one had walked through, Shiro closed it before looking towards the craters in the distance. Perhaps I should fix this before I go, Shiro muttered, waving her hand. Green energy wrapped around her palm as the ground started to shake. The charred surfaces started to regain their luster as the ground repaired itself along with the forest. While this was happening, the crest above them changed to Shiro's crest, and the zone started to change. Since Nimue was also a pseudo-demigod spirit like Azul, the zone started to match her element.